Hello, everyone. This week we are talking about gentleness. It is a fruit of the spirit. And what really comes to mind when we first really started thinking about gentleness is like, how do you talk to yourself? Are you gentle with yourself or mean to yourself? Do you yell at yourself if you make a mistake? Do you go down that rabbit hole of guilt and shame? Because none of that is gentleness. That is like the opposite of gentleness. And so, in order for us to be a reflection of the gentleness of God, we must first have it for ourselves. So, it's really key in being able to do it for other people. Because if you really think about what gentleness kind of is, it's like understanding that mistakes aren't necessarily a mistake, but a moment to learn. And once we start to understand that, okay, that didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, when somebody else does something similar, now we're not so quick to go, oh, that was what'd you do? Look what you did. That didn't work. You did that. Versus, ooh, yeah, that probably wasn't the greatest idea right there, but what can we learn from it? We're not going to let our friends go down that rabbit hole when we've learned to not go down that rabbit hole. We can sit there and say, okay, what should we do now? What could make this different? This different using gentleness instead of wrath. I almost feel like, I don't know where that just came from. Like gentleness is the opposite of wrath, where wrath is like, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to take them down. I don't care what they said. It's all about me. They hurt my feelings. I'm offended. Whereas gentleness is like, I really don't like how they just spoke to me, but because I know God loves me and I am love, therefore I can give them love by returning gentleness to them instead of more of whatever it is they've got going on. Because Tay's always telling me you can't fight fire with fire. Everybody will burn down. I mean, if you really think about it, you got a fire, you don't throw more fire on it. You got to throw some living water on it. That was totally God. You got to throw some living by gentleness, by showing that you understand, or if you can't quite understand, that you're at least trying to understand that thing that they are going through, that hard thing, that rough thing, that thing that maybe they're struggling to find understanding, or maybe they're struggling to find compassion because this world is, so many people are so offended all the time that gentleness is just like no longer exist out there. Meanwhile, God is so gentle with us. We yell and scream at him, but he doesn't yell and scream at us. He's gentle back. His response is a still small voice. Just the very essence of all that he is gentle. So we need to be gentle first with ourselves so that we know how to be gentle with others. We can't do something with something we don't have. So we must first learn, what does that even mean? And I think Tay has some really good definitions or descriptions of gentleness.
Yeah, certainly. So, gentleness refers to a quality of kindness, compassion, consideration towards others. It's characterized by a humble and tender approach where one avoids aggression and seeks to understand and help others with a loving attitude rather than seeking dominance. And honestly, just this need to be validated, to be right, to be superior. Um, Gentleness completely dismantles pride. It's humility. It's it's recognizing like, oh, I could put my thumb over this situation. I could really make this person or whatever the situation is feel small or belittle or, exalt myself in this circumstance, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to humble myself because I recognize that I'm not all that I think that I am, right? And God's a love. And if I do stay puffed up like that, I don't give room for God's love to shine through me and to touch other people's lives. Like Lori said, can't fight fire with fire. How are we going to be the light of Christ? How are we going to draw people to Christ if we're too worried about ourselves, if we're too worried about how we look in our image and I got to defend myself in every situation and I'm just offended by every little thing that's said about me. And we're operating in so much pride to where we're just reactive about everything. And there's no room, there's no self-control, which we're going to get into that, but there's no self-control. So there's no room for gentle approaches. There's no room for love, because the only way that love can really shine through is through this quality of gentleness. Because this isn't to mistake it for weakness. This isn't like, oh, we're just like petting the cat, like beating around the bush here. Like, no, love is clear. Love is direct, but love is also gentle. And so I think that we just have to understand that concept, because I think that there's a lot of situations where maybe our intentions are with love. It's because we love that we want to say what we want to say, or we want to do what we want to do, but we're not approaching it in the right way that's shining the love of Christ. We're taking matter into our own hands and trying to get a point across. And God's like, no, that's not how we do this. Gentleness is still partnered with truth. This isn't saying that you're not speaking truth. So while gentleness may seem passive, it is actually rooted in strength and self-control, allowing one to respond in kindness even when provoked, because that's what catches people's attention. Like, whoa, okay, they weren't moved by that. And it actually causes the enemy, because he's the one that's behind all this anyway. Let's just get real, that he's the one that is in strategy, aiming to cause us to spiral, aiming to cause us to get puffed up and offended and lashing at each other and divide and argument and argue. And he wants to cause division. So he's the one strategizing all of these things against us to cause us to react in a way that does not reflect Christ. And so whenever we do reflect Christ and how we react, and when we do reflect Christ through gentleness, he doesn't know what to do. We just stumped the enemy, because he's like, oh, that didn't do it for him. How else can I trigger him? How else can I set them off course? So he's trying to think of ways to set us off course. And so when we're operating in these fruits of the Spirit, that's direct ammunition. That's direct spiritual warfare, good spiritual warfare against the enemy. And it's like, you can't cause me to stumble with your strategies against me, because I'm operating in the fruits of the Spirit. So gentleness is, and I know we've talked about this when we've talked about a lot of the fruits of the Spirit, that it is warfare. Like, when we're in alignment with God's will, when we're in alignment with God's Spirit, we stand stronger in authority. So the other thing that I love that Lori said is, we're giving this love to someone that clearly doesn't have it, right? If they're saying certain things or doing certain things to provoke someone, maybe it's out of hatred, maybe it's out of anger or strife or bitterness or unforgiveness. This is an active act of love. So I love that this is an active expression of love, because it's like, oh, okay, so how do I love other people? Act in gentleness towards them. Have a kind, compassionate approach towards other people. Consider them before you consider yourself. Because we're so quick to consider ourselves when something's said to us, and we start, thinking about all the ways that it hurts us, right? Instead of thinking about what hurt them. What hurt them for that to come out of their mouth, for that action to be done. And that should posture us to be gentle and loving towards them, and to also be in prayer for them and war for them, because there's something going on that we don't see.
Mhm. That is so true. And hurt people hurt people. So if they're saying things to you that's hurtful, it's because they're hurting. And it doesn't do them any good for us to now go on the defensive and get hurt by what they're saying. We have to start taking ourselves out of equations that we're not even in. It's an addition problem, and you're talking subtraction. We have to start understanding that the ways people see the world and the way they perceive the world isn't how we see it. Stop trying to see it their way, see it God's way. Ooh, that was totally him. Stop trying to see it your way, stop trying to see it their way, start seeing it God's way. And he tells us to be gentle. 1 Peter 3:4 says, rather it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is a great worth in God's sight. So he's already saying that you have to get into that inner self. Again, you can't give gentleness to someone if you don't actually understand it or have it for yourself. So that inner self. And God even says that it's an unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Unfading beauty. That just like blows my mind. What does that even mean, God? Unfading beauty. It means that he's never taking this from you. He's unfading. He's gentle. God is that still small voice. And if we're made in his image, then we're called to be that still small voice. We're called to be gentle and quiet, to listen more than we speak, to stop judging what doesn't need to be judged. We're called to start loving where there's so much hate. We're to be that reflection of God. We are to be his shining light. We are to be that gentleness that everyone deserves to have, but so very few see or experience. Because when we look out in the world today, everyone's mad, everyone's offended. It's all about what me, 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 me. I'm going to blame everybody. I'm not going to take responsibility for myself. They're mean to me, so I have to be mean to them. Thankfully, God is not like that. Could you imagine if God gave back what he got? And yet he still responds with all of the fruit of the Spirit that we've been taking you through. He loves us without end. This all encompassing, amazing, miraculous love. And when we're able to stand in that, because that is what he is, which means that's what we are going to find that gentleness. It's not something foreign to us. It may feel foreign to us, but it's not. It's actually a part of who you are. You are called to be gentle and meek and still. And what's crazier is when you think of the enormity of that, because we feel like that's making us less than and small. When actually, like Taylor said, it's strength, it's power. We're actually standing in God's authority and his power when we're able to unleash his gentleness from him through us to other people. And that's just this amazing, beautiful, miraculous thing that we get to experience when we allow ourselves to become his reflection, to be more of him and less of ourselves. And so even as I'm talking, I just noticed that even as I'm talking, I'm starting to feel his gentleness come through me. Because when I get excited, like I start to just, you can feel it. You can feel the energy of it. But as I'm like experiencing his stillness and his gentleness, I just feel myself becoming gentle instead of obnoxious. it, it, I just ask that you go and just explore what God's gentleness really is and even expressing it. God, show me that when I express it. What does that actually feel like, God? To just express that reflection of your gentleness and start feeling what that even feels like and give it to yourself. Stop getting mad at yourself. I mean, the world is so quick to tell us that we fail, but is there really such a thing as failure? Or is it just a moment of learning where I can say, well, that didn't work? Because when I think of it, I used to teach math, so sometimes it always comes back to numbers, but Numbers don't get mad if you think 7 plus 3 is 11. They don't get mad at you. They just are like, wait, actually, it's 10. It's not 11. So we have to give ourselves that gentleness and know that sometimes we trip, sometimes we stumble. That's just part of being human. But let's take that moment of humanness and reflect on God's gentleness and all that He is. And stop looking at it as things that we lack, because in Him we lack nothing. You who are listening to this, you lack absolutely nothing. You have everything that you need inside of you because God is inside of you. And so when you allow yourself to bask in all that He is, that's when the fruit will be known and shown, and it will grow, and they will know you by your fruit. But you have to allow yourself to not only plant the seeds that God gives you, but to water and to nourish them so that you can't just wake up one day to a harvest of gentleness. You must first take those seeds of God, plant them back into God, and then allow His holy water to nourish them. And that takes time and it takes effort and it takes purpose. You have to purposefully do the things God is calling you to do so that you can reap that harvest. So let's all start planting those seeds of all that God is. And we're so close. We only have one more fruit of the Spirit going, but I mean, gentleness. I'm just like, I don't know, Tay. I've just been blown away by every discussion and every fruit that we've been talking about has just been so eye-opening. And I feel like I'm just like going through this awakening season of what these fruits of the Spirit actually are and what they mean and how we can inhabit them. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And this one's, I love that you said that it takes purpose, it takes intention to come into alignment with these characteristics of the Spirit. It takes, when we see the opportunity in front of us, taking a second to consult the Holy Spirit. Be like, how do I react? What do I do? Look for guidance, right? He's called the counselor for a reason. And sometimes it's not just automatic for us to just operate in it. We have to actually go and seek the counsel. And, this has personally happened in my own life a lot recently of just like, I know what my flesh wants to do, but God, what do I do? What do I do? And consult with the Holy Spirit, consult with the Father and sit in prayer and take time. Not everything has to be done like right in the moment. Like just because it seems urgent doesn't mean it's priority. There are so many things in our life that we think just have to be done right in that moment. And it's like, oh, I got to make a decision. Like, I mean, we probably do have a little bit of time to just like pray and like get some space and figure out the best response here, probably do have time.
Mhm.
And so that's just something to think about. Really think about, what does gentleness look like in my life? How can I be gentle to myself and to others? Am I accepting God's gentleness to me? What does it look like to me? How is God gentle with me? And really just journal on that. I mean, that's a powerful question. How is God gentle with me? I've actually like been in prayer, like deep prayer before, and tears flowing and just thanking Him for how gentle and patient He is with me. And I just think about all the moments of like, God, thank you for being gentle with me, because there's been so many instances that you could have sent fire from heaven down out of my rebellion. Yeah, out of my ridiculousness. And you were gentle. And you were loving. And you were kind and compassionate. So it makes us really think, when God displays those things to us and He gives that gift to us, Who are we to withhold it from other people? Who are we to do that? And it does put things in perspective in moments that my flesh wants to react in pride, or my flesh wants to be selfish. And then I think about those moments of how good the Father's been to me, how good Jesus has been to me. And I'm like, oh, I need to pass that on. I need to bless. I need to be a blessing. And so know that operating out of gentleness is a blessing to other people. And it's something that pleases the Father. It pleases the Father when we're in alignment with his Spirit and we're seeing these fruits in our life. Like, it pleases him. And when our heart's in the right place above all else, of course. So we hope that you guys learned a lot from this episode, and we look forward to having you on for our last fruit of the Spirit. So stay tuned, and we look forward to it.